So we can talk about the functions of the muscle tissue. And one is obviously that the muscle tissue can produce movement. So the production of movement. So a good example of this is the skeletal muscles, which cause movement of our skeleton at the joints. And so it's kind of interesting because when we think about this movement or the orientation of the muscles, they have to actually extend over the joint. Maybe it is a tendon that extends over the joint, but when the muscle contracts, that is what causes movement at the joint. So this production of movement is a function of muscle tissue. So we'll just say as an example, we have skeletal muscle causing movement at the joints. The second function would be that it stabilizes joints. So the stabilizing of joints. And so you probably heard how important the muscle tone is in the body. So muscle tone is a state of partial contraction, and this actually helps to stabilize the joints. So in our shoulder, for example, we have the rotator cuff muscles, and they have tendons that extend over the shoulder joint. And so if you have muscle tone in your shoulders, this is going to stabilize your joint and make it better able to do its function, but also it's going to decrease the chances of dislocation where the humerus comes out of position with the scapula. So the stabilization of joints is important. So we stabilize the body. Another good example of this is the knee joint. So we have this large muscle called the quadriceps femoris. It's actually a group of muscles, your thigh muscles. And it has tendon that extends over your knee joint. And so if your knee becomes unstable, then oftentimes the doctors will prescribe weightlifting exercises that will help to strengthen that muscle. So we can say that muscles have tendons that extend over joints. Having good muscle tone makes the joint more stable. It also plays a role in posture, right? So when we think about our skeletal muscles, not all of our muscles are actually showing like physical movement, like locomotion. So the ability to stand up, for example, and to remain upright is something that is coordinated by your postural muscles. So this would also be an example of stabilization. So another example would be the skeletal muscles that are involved in posture. And one of the interesting things about posture is oftentimes when we try to sit up, we try to use the big back muscles to make us sit up straight. But really, it's the muscles, the erector spinae, for example, that are small and close to your spine that will normally do that job more effortlessly than, say, for example, using your big back muscles. So you might have cramping of your big back muscles, and you're like, how does anybody sit up straight? Well, babies can do it because they have spinal reflexes that work by alternating contracting and relaxing of these small muscles. So we can retrain our nervous system and our muscular system to have better posture. So that is one of the functions of muscle tissue. Another function is storing and moving substances in the body. So the storage and movement of substances in the body. So we have special types of muscles called sphincter muscles. So an example of this would be sphincter muscles, which are smooth muscle that are found in the digestive system, for example. So our stomach stores food and it releases just a tiny bit of chyme, or it's kind of like nutrient broth, into the small intestine. So those sphincter muscles actually close off and then they open up just a little bit and a little bit of nutrients get shunted into the small intestine and then it closes again. And so these sphincters are important. They're also important in our circulatory system. So we'll talk more about sphincters also when we get to the circulatory system and your blood vessels, cardiovascular system. Okay, and finally, we could have that it functions in the production of heat. So this is primarily skeletal muscle. That functions in shivering. And what shivering is, I think we talked about this in thermoregulation, or you might have read about it. But when your body temperature gets too low, your body will start to shiver. And what this does is it converts chemical energy into mechanical energy, and heat is released and it helps to heat up the body. So shivering is an example of a mechanism that helps to regulate body temperature.